Jason, welcome to the show, man.
Glad to be here, Justin.
Yeah, we met at the thing, and so an homage to Terry, I'm wearing the thing hat while we have this conversation. And it's so funny, whenever I post a clip and I'm wearing this hat, he always comments, he's like, yeah, the thing. So he shout out to Terry Weaver. Obviously, everybody knows that I religiously speak at his event. Been there 5 or 6 times now. And I met you there, and immediately we started talking about cigars. And you took me to an incredible cigar spot in Nashville that I still tell everybody about. But we just hit it off, man. And you're somebody I was really impressed with what you spoke about, really impressed with your business acumen, really impressed with how you carried yourself. And immediately I was like, I have to have you on the podcast. So excited to sit down and have this conversation, man. But why don't we start out with who's the real Jason Duncan today? And then we'll break down how you got there.
Well, today, the real Jason Duncan is an entrepreneur. I am a business coach. I own 7 different entities, but the main thing I do on a day in, day out basis is I work with entrepreneurs, male entrepreneurs 99% of the time, on how to do something I call exit without exiting, which is something I pulled off in 2020. And once I did it, everybody wanted to know how to do it. So I thought, hey, well, okay, I'll teach other people how to do it. So that's what I spend most of my time doing. I've got a podcast called The Root of All Success. I've got a best-selling book called Exit Without Exiting. And I'm married to my high school sweetheart. We met on a blind date 30, golly, how many years ago? We've been married 28 years. And we've got 2 adult kids. My daughter will be 21 next month, and my son's 23.
I love it. So first question is adult kids the best part of parenting?
You know, I think every season has its moments of terror, and every season has its moments of awesomeness. And the cool thing about this season is when my son moved out in 2020, like he chose a really terrible year to move out on his own.
It's tough.
And it was unexpected. It was kind of a shock. He's like, hey, I'm thinking about moving out. I'm like, what? And so that was a bad year because we weren't emotionally ready for it. Because we love our son, we have a good relationship with our son, so we weren't prepared for that. So that was tough. But now that he's been out on his own for 3.5 years, it's kind of, all right, this is cool. I have a good adult relationship with my son that was very different. I mean, we can sit and smoke a cigar together. We can talk metaphysics. We can talk deep. We can talk theology. We can talk philosophy. It's pretty cool. My daughter, she still lives here at the house with us, and she's busy all the time, always gone. And she and I haven't reached that same adult relationship yet. She's still a kid in my eyes, even though I know she's not.
Yeah.
So that's been kind of cool. But the best part about it is the empty nester thing that my wife and I get to experience. I mean, we just got back from a 9-day motorcycle trip, and my daughter just took care of the house and the dog while we were gone. We don't have to worry about it. So that part is pretty cool because we're relatively young and we have access to capital. We could go do cool stuff without having to worry about what's going on at the house.
Yeah, that's life goals right there, right? Maybe not a motorcycle cross country trip. And I know that your wife won't want to do it again, but we talked about that before we hit record. But I mean, obviously I followed along on Instagram and it looked like a beautiful, beautiful trip across the country. So that's really cool, man. But where did you get your start? Like, what was it about entrepreneurship? What was the business that you were in? Let's dive into that. And then we'll talk about exiting without exiting.
So I was an unemployed school teacher in 2011. And that's how I got my start as an accidental entrepreneur. So the way it really started, the more detailed answer to that is in 2010, in the spring of 2010. Oh, actually, it was winter, February, March of 2010. A friend of mine came to me and he said, hey, man, I got this idea for a hydrogen generator for cars. And I want to do this invention, start this business with you. Like, dude, I don't know. I'm a history teacher. I don't know anything about this stuff. And, his thought was, Jason, you're good with people. You're good with sales. Like we could do this. We can make this work. So I reluctantly went into business with this guy. He didn't have any money. So he had the idea. He was a mad scientist. And I was like, okay, I have access to people who have access to capital. So I went out and borrowed $5,000 from somebody and we started the business. And it was just nights and weekends. That's it. I had no intention of ever not teaching. The following spring, so a year later, my principal came to me and said, hey, Jason, I got bad news, man. I can't keep your contract for the following school year because of budget cuts to require me to cut a couple of teaching positions in the building for next school year. This was coming on the heels of the Great Recession. I didn't have tenure. I was the last guy hired in the building. I was the number one teacher in the county in my subject area. It didn't, the latter didn't matter because of the former. So I got cut. And I looked at my options and I thought, well, I could go corporate, get a job. I could find another teaching job. There were no teaching jobs to be had. And so I thought, I'm going to make a run at this business thing. We hadn't made any money in a full year in the business, but I got the bug. I was like, I could do this. So I retooled the business away from hydrogen into LED lighting. And I said, I could do LED lighting sales to save energy and I could sell this. And I think it would work. And that's how I started what turned out to be a multi-million-dollar company.
That's amazing. And so like, it's so interesting to me to see people who never thought about entrepreneurship and then they end up in it. And now they're teaching other people how to do it, because it's usually like, you know, people come out with the story. I was an entrepreneur when I was 5. I was selling lemonade and I was cutting grass and I was doing all these things. I had the shadiest middle school entrepreneur story. Like I used to, this is terrible. I probably shouldn't say this online. Oh, I'm going to say it. So I used to practice baseball players' signatures and I got really, really good at it. And I used to sign cards and sell them to my friends. You know how messed up that is? Like that's shady. But I didn't. I mean, I was
Creative,
12 years old. I was 12 years old. So it's just so fascinating to me. But I love that you got bit by the bug and you're like, look, I'm going to retool some things. I want to start making some money and then really build out. Right. And so you're able to build this huge business. And then your real strategy came in 2020. Like, this is where your brand started to grow as a person. This is everything, right? The exit without exiting. I think that's fascinating because a lot of people talk about selling their business. Some people are like, I'm so passionate about it, I don't want to sell it. And you're the person who kind of slides in at that point and talks like, how can you continue to make money and not have to work in your business, right? Because at the end of the day, time is the most valuable asset. Like, you can't buy back time. So what made you go, okay, I think it's time for me to step away? Like, what was that thought process like?
So the value of a business coach cannot be overstated. I did not even know business coaches existed in 2010, 2011 when my business started. I don't even think I understood what life coaching was. I thought a coach just wore a whistle around his neck and taught biology. Like, that's it. Like, I didn't know what a coach was. In 2016, 17, can't remember exactly, but I hired my first coach ever. BJ Howard was his name. He's since passed away. BJ was an awesome dude, but I hired him. And as a good business coach should, he gave me perspective. You see, we all, as entrepreneurs, you know this as well as I do, we look at our business through blinders and we can only see what's in front of us and we focus in on that. We can't see the stuff in the periphery. And a good business coach comes in with 180-degree peripheral vision and can see stuff that we can't see. Go, hey, if you just change this, it's not a Mensa moment. It didn't take a genius to figure it out. It just took someone perspective. And so BJ gave me perspective. And through the process of having that perspective, I realized that I had trapped myself into a business that was obviously very successful, and I enjoyed it, but I was trapped nonetheless. I had created a job. I was good at it. I was paid very handsomely for it, but I was still trapped in a job. And that's when the wheels started turning. Okay, what do I do? So my business partner at the time not always, but would occasionally mention, oh, we got to have some sort of exit strategy. But he wasn't talking about exit without exit. He was like, how are we going to sell at some point?
Yeah.
So I thought, let's sell, right? I mean, that's a common thing to do. And BJ looked at me and said, can't do that. I said, why? He goes, ain't worth anything. I said, what? I said, my business has a 7-figure bottom line.
Yeah.
It's worth something. He goes, no. He goes, because anybody who would want to buy it is buying you. And if you're talking about wanting out, that ain't the way out. And so that was the mind boggle. It's like, okay, what do I do now? So Justin, that's when I started thinking about other ways and eventually led to exit without exiting.
Yeah. And so what does that look like for people listening right now who may be in a place where like, I'm burnt out. Yeah, it's affording my life. Like I get to do cool things, but I'm just burnt out. How do they begin the process of exiting? Because that sounds scary, right? Like somebody who wanted to buy your business, they're buying you. Well, you're still leaving. How's the business still running? Like that's the thought process.
So the first thing that it takes to exit without exiting is mindset. As everything in life comes back to mindset. If you, like Henry Ford, you said, you either you think you can or you think you can't. You're right. Doesn't matter. So what you think about, you bring about. This is what Napoleon Hill taught. Is like anything the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. We've got to understand that our thoughts are things and things are thoughts. That's where everything happens. The magic is in understanding that what you think about, you're going to bring about. And that's where it all starts. So you have to shift your mindset away from being the hero of your business, being the one upon whom everything relies and upon everyone relies. You know, you can't be the hinge around which the business turns. You've got to remove yourself from that. But tactically, you can't until your mindset is on the right spot to know I can't be the center of the business. And for me, really, I think one of the things I teach my clients is that it's selfish to be the center of your business. Because if you have employees who rely on that job to pay their mortgages and send their kids to school and pay their medical bills, but that job that they're relying on, it really relies on you. So if you're sick, you get hit by a bus or you die, they're out of life. Like
Yeah.
you've selfishly put them in a position of danger. So that mindset is step, Justin, number one. You have to understand you are not the hero of your business. Your business cannot revolve around you. You've got to get comfortable with the fact that other people can do what you think you only know how to do.
Yeah. No, and I love that, man. And especially when you're talking about legacy, right? Like I obviously just recently got married and now I have stepkids. And so for the first time as an entrepreneur, I'm not thinking, how do I make 10 more $1,000 so I can go on that sick trip? I'm thinking like, how do I build long-term wealth where the kids are taken care of, right? Where they don't have to worry once both their mom and I are gone, right? And now keep in mind, I at least have 50 years left. Count. Yeah, at least 50, right? So like I got some time, but it's such a beautiful thing to think like this business can continue to run and support the legacy beyond me versus selling, having a couple million, and then your kids blow through it in 3 days, right? So I think that's such a beautiful thing. And so obviously getting the mindset right is that first step. Now, did you get people in place? Did you just hire a COO? Like, what does that even look like? Because again, you still need people to be there and running this thing.
Well, the first tactical step, there's 4 core principles that I teach in the exit without exiting methodology. And they're very tactical, but it's all based up on the mindset. So mindset's kind of number one. As a matter of fact, I didn't spend a ton of time on mindset in that book, but I think I've got another book in me that I'm going to talk about mindset around this. But tactically speaking, the first step is you've got to embrace delegation. And what I've found over the years of not only doing it myself, but also now coaching thousands of other people is that nobody understands how to really delegate. It's a thing that people say they know how to do, but they don't. And so one of my signature talks, which you heard me give, is on delegation and how to embrace that delegation. And so that's tactically step number one. You've got to embrace that. Number two, the second tactical step is you have to eliminate stress. Stress is a killer physically, mentally, financially, and spiritually. It can kill anything in any of those areas. Stress isn't good. And stress can be totally eliminated if you understand the laws of the universe around how stress is actually created. So one of the things I tap into are universal laws around how stress is created and experienced as humans, and how we can make a shift tactically and mentally to eliminate stress from our lives. Because if your business is stressed, it's never going to exceed what you are able to bring to the table. So you got to eliminate stress. So delegation, stress elimination. And then third, the tactical step, a tactical thing is that you've got to establish the right systems and processes. And here's the difference between me and most coaches out there. Most gurus, most coaches would go straight to step 3, systematize, right? Let's get processes in place and you can step away and go play golf and the business runs. Well, actually, no, it won't. Because if you have systems and processes in place, but everybody's stressed in your business and you have not embraced delegation, you will have tasks that you must still oversee in a stressed out situation. Sure, yeah, it's systematized, but it's not operating optimally. So that's the third. And then the fourth is invest in people. We need to understand that our employees are our number one asset. It's not us. It's our employees. Our employees have to understand they're the number one, and we need to understand they're the number one. I was sitting down with my assistant today, Renee, and she's new. She's 30 days in. And I sat down with her and we were talking about clients versus, what she needs to do with my clients versus what she needs to do as my employee. And I looked her dead in the eye and I said, listen, I just need you to know you are more important than my clients. And it kind of took her back for a second. She's like, what? I said, look, you are more important because without you, I can't serve my clients. So if it came down to me having to choose, which is an absurd thing to say because it won't, but if it ever came down to me having to choose client or you, I'm choosing you because I can get new clients pretty easily. But having an employee who knows my systems and runs things, that's important. So we have to invest financially, emotionally, spiritually into our employees so that we can embrace delegation, eliminate stress, establish systems, processes, invest in people. It's a circle.
That's awesome, dude. And that's such a powerful thing to empower people like that, right? Because I think a lot of times employees feel like they are just a number. But if you're able to build a business or an organization where they're actually people, where they do carry the weight they truly do carry versus just being, a throwaway, that's huge, man. And that's such a huge thing. Now, I want you to dive a little bit deeper into the delegation. Obviously, I saw that keynote. I was blown away. I'm like, this just makes sense. Can you talk a little bit about how someone is able to delegate properly versus how people are actually doing it wrong?
Most people think that delegation is simply assigning a task to somebody. It's like, hey, Bob, come here and do this for me. All right, good. And then that's it. Like that isn't delegation, but that's how most, not just entrepreneurs, that's how most people think most people think that's what delegation is. And that's only 1/3 of delegation. Delegation is assigning and trusting and empowering someone. So those other two things get lost. There's actually another universal law in our, in our consciousness and experience as humans called the law of hindrance. And the law of hindrance tells us that if we're hindered from success in any area of life, it can be identified as a breakdown in either a lack of trust or lack of discipline. That's it. So you can run that metric through your brain. If you're overweight, fat, sick, medicated, if you have terrible relationships, if you are broke all the time, you can go back and say, well, which one or both is it? Is it lack of trust or lack of discipline? It always comes up. That's your hindrance point. That's what's hindering you from success. So in delegation, we have to not only assign, but we have to entrust, which means to trust that other person to carry it out, not to look over their shoulder and double check. We have to entrust. And then third part of the delegation is empower. We have to empower them. And so many times I see entrepreneurs who are very good at their job that they created. They assign, they call it delegation, but they assign and then belittle and emasculate the person rather than empowering that person. And when they do that, they then declare delegation doesn't work. And that is the death knell to true entrepreneurship and freedom. Because if you emasculate someone or declare delegation doesn't work because of your inability to delegate correctly, you're forever going to be trapped in the ironic prison of entrepreneurship.
That's so powerful, man. And just absolutely so true. So I want to ask you a question that I kind of slot it back into my podcast every once in a while, but I'm fascinated to learn from you what you would say, because you have built a massive business, right? It's successful. You employ a lot of people, all these things, right? But I want to fast forward to the last day in your life, right? You're about to take your last breath. And everything that you've built is no longer existing, right? Like that's not your legacy. So the question for you is, at the end of your life, if you could only be remembered for one sentence, what would that sentence be?
He was a great husband.
I love it. I love it. How many years again?
28 years.
It's a long time.
It is. It's been a fantastic 28 years. Most of
That's
it.
awesome. I love it, man. And I got the opportunity to meet your wife, and she's a lovely human being. And you can see how you guys you work, right? Like it's just a beautiful thing to see. Because marriages don't last anymore. Like it's just how it goes, man. So it's always good to see that stuff. Now, obviously, as you're continuing to now empower other people to do similar things that you're doing, what vehicles are you doing to now teach others? Is it through masterminds? Is it through coaching? Is it through events? Tell us more about that.
Well, I'll start by telling you I've gone through the experience, like most coaches, of offering different products and courses and services and coaching and one-on-one and groups. And what I found is that people who pay higher dollar amounts get more results. It doesn't make any sense because I'm not any different if I charge you $10 or if I charge you $1 million. Like it's still the same me. But I'm telling you, if you pay me $1 million, you're going to get results.
Yeah.
Why? Because there's pain associated with not following through on something you've invested in. And I think that's the rule for everybody. So if you're listening and you're thinking about hiring a coach, hiring a cheap coach is not doing you any favors. If you hire somebody that's only a few $100 a session or a couple $1,000s a month, and I just, no offense meant, because I don't have any idea how much you charge, but I'm telling you, if you're charging a little bit, or if you're paying a little bit for that, you're going to get a little bit in result. So I originally, when I started coaching, I was charging people $1,500 a month, and I was meeting with them once a week, most of the time in person. And I would thought,
Jeez.
this is blowing my mind that people would pay me that much money. Well, so now I offer primarily two different products for coaching. Number one is I have a mastermind called the Exeter Club, and it's male entrepreneurs that are doing generally about $3 million or more in revenue in their business, and they're looking to get out of the weeds of daily operations. They don't want to exit to sell or necessarily, although I do have one who sold. They're looking to get out of the weeds, and that is my mastermind group. The other thing I do is one-on-one coaching, and I only take 7 clients per year because it's very in depth. We meet weekly on a phone call, 4 times a year in person. And that one-on-one is pretty in depth and expensive. It's $125,000 for the year, but that includes membership in the mastermind as well as as well as the one-on-one coaching. But my clients who pay for that and who renew and keep coming back, they do so because they see results that are in excess of the money they've invested in me. Most of my clients see a 3 to 5 times return on that money every year.
That's great. So what do you think the key to getting results is? If there was one common denominator behind all, obviously they're all different, they all have different businesses. What's the common denominator other than investing large amounts of money?
Well, you're talking about what's the key to getting results with a coach? Is that the question?
No, for yourself. Like, what are these, what sets these people apart? They're getting massive results. Like, what do you think the key to getting massive results is?
I think it's about clarity around what you're actually trying to accomplish, because the results, a definition of success. If we look at success, a definition of success in the dictionary is getting the results that you aimed for. So if you wanted to lose 10 pounds, for example, and you lost 10 or more, that is success. That is a result-based success. A lot of coaches work on tactics and just making a little improvement here, a little improvement there. But what I do, one of the first things I do with my clients is we sit down to find out, okay, where do you want to be? Let's talk about, okay, let's put on a whiteboard where you are now. How much money do you make now? How many hours are you working per week? How many hours do you give to other events, charitable contributions, et cetera? What are you giving away? How many homes or investments do you own? How much time do you spend with your family? There's 5 to 6 metrics that we use to kind of identify. Then we go, okay, let's dream a little. What is your net worth? What do you want it to be? How many hours a week do you want to work? How many businesses do you want to own? How many homes do you want to own? Like, let's dream. No limit. There's no limit. And then we backwards reverse engineer from that no limit back to today. And now we know where to start. Because if you just say where you at today, or let's make a slight improvement, I know there's people that say just 1% better every day. Don't disagree with that. But if that's the only thing you're focusing on, you're going to be massively disappointed.
Yeah, you got to know where you're going.
Because you could do a 10% per day if you knew where you're going. If you know where you're heading, you could do a bigger than 1% improvement every day. So I really dig in with my clients to find out, where do you want to go? And we reverse engineer that. So let's say you want to be worth $500 million one day. Okay, that's a big goal. So, well, you're going to have to be worth 300 before that, right? Okay, so, and then you're going to have to be worth maybe 200 before, and you kind of back it up to where it's natural steps. And now we know, okay, from step 1 to step 2, I could do that in a year. But if I had just tried to go from step 1 to what's next, I don't know what's next, probably not ever going to reach it.
Yeah, dude, so true. And that's how I do it too. Like, people have these massive goals, which, yes, we should have them. But if you don't see the little goals in between, it's just terrifying. And you actually become frozen. You become frozen and even going, you're like, oh, that's not possible. Because you didn't get there overnight or whatever the case would be. So I love that. So I want to ask you a question that I ask every single person on the show. It's a 2-part question since you just talked about success. The first part of the question is, what is your definition of success? So yours, not the dictionaries. The second part is, what are 3 things you do every single day to ensure that success for yourself?
Wow, this is good, because this is a question that I ask on my show.
I love it.
I'm on 180 some odd episodes, and I've got 180 different definitions that I've actually recorded in a Google sheet and categorized them. It's so fascinating to see what people say. My first answer to that is always the dictionary definition, because I accept that as reality, to say, hey, success is getting the results you hope for. So if I want to be known as a great husband at the end of my life, like you asked me earlier, okay, I'm working towards that, and that is success. Just consistent perseverance in that direction. I think that's part of what success. But I think if I peel it back, which bridges the first answer to the question to the second answer to the second question, is that to me, I want to have complete freedom. I think success is complete freedom over your time, your energy, and your money.
Mm.
So for me, that's what I'm aiming for. Besides the fact that the other things you asked me, like that's what I'm aiming at. I want complete freedom over time, money, energy. Am I there yet? No, but I've made significant improvements. I've made significant improvements and huge steps in that direction. I got a long way to go. I'm not there yet, but I am aiming that way. Now, the question you ask is, what am I doing to achieve that? Well, one of the things I do to achieve that, and I'll show this on my phone. I can pull this up real quick. So I use an app every single day of my life called PrayerMate, and I'm going to see if I can make this. Yeah, so it looks like this when you open it up. So this is I don't mind plugging them. They're really good. I don't get any affiliate commission because they don't charge anything for their app.
Yeah.
But it's designed around prayers, which I do this every day. But one of the things I do every single day is I will go to where is it? I got to find this because this answers your question specifically. Man, now I'm not going to be able to because I'm looking at it. I'm on pressure here. But when one of the things on here, oh, here it is, my personal mission. So I list my personal mission and my walk with God. And so I have my definite purpose in life. I read every single day. Every single day. My purpose in life is using my gifts of teaching and leadership to help other people achieve success and balance. I read it every day. I don't really need to have it written down. I memorize it. I read what I'm currently doing to exercise that gift and my purpose, like in pursuit of that purpose. My personal vision, I read my personal vision statement, which is to be known as a man who made Jesus and my wife happy. That's my personal vision, what I want to be known as. And then my professional vision is to see 100,000 entrepreneurs set free from the ironic prison of entrepreneurship, and to see 10,000 people escape poverty and mediocrity through entrepreneurship. So I read that every day. And then this is where it comes down to the very end. My overarching goals in life. And these last three things written right there. I have complete freedom over my time, energy, and money. I'm respected by my family, friends, and business colleagues. I do everything with integrity, treating others the way I would want to be treated. Every single day, without fail, I read these, I meditate on these, and it's just part of who I am. And there's lots more where that came from, but that's specifically about success. That's what I'm aiming at.
I love it, man. So I wrap up every single interview with the same question, but before we get there, how do people get a hold of you? How do they follow you? What's all the good stuff?
All right. If you just Google the real Jason Duncan, you're going to find me. I'm on Instagram frequently, every day, actually. LinkedIn, I'm there quite a bit. And then YouTube. I'm proud to say that I just hit 1,000 subscribers on the YouTube channel recently.
Congrats, man.
Okay. And I've done zero, I've hired nobody, nothing fake has happened whatsoever, not pushed anything. It's 100% organic, and I'm digging it. So YouTube, LinkedIn, and Instagram are the three places at the real Jason Duncan. And I would be honored if anybody would go check out my book, which is on my website. You can go there, exitwithoutexiting.com, or you can go to therealjasonduncan.com/book.
Love it, man. So where'd the real part come from? The real Jason Duncan.
It's kind of funny. So when I signed up for Instagram years ago, Jason Duncan was taken. And honestly, I don't even know who has it. I never really looked him up, but the real was like one of the ways I'd seen people add to their Instagram handle just to have their name.
Yeah.
So there's the official or what's your Instagram?
It's with my middle initial, Justin T. Shank, because Justin Shank was taken.
Yeah, so I could have done that, but I'll put the real. So I did the real, and it wasn't a branding play. I just picked it. And then several years later, I had a lady on LinkedIn reach out to me, and she said, I want to do a free 30-minute personal branding consultation. I'm like, sure. So I whatever, if you want to offer it for free, I'll take it. So she did it, and she did her homework. She was really, really good. She showed up at the meeting, asked lots of questions. She was calling out things on my Instagram, and she was talking about my LinkedIn profile. And she goes, "You're the real Jason Duncan." And I went, "Okay." She goes, "No. That's your personal brand. You're the real Jason Duncan." I said, okay, tell me more. And so she explained what she meant by personal brand, because I didn't really think, I didn't know where she was going with it. And she goes, I've already checked, the realjasonduncan.com is available. You should buy it. You should get a logo design. This is you. And this is everything you need to build around you. And I was like, all right, I did it. So that's how the reel came about. And there's a whole nother funny story about the guy who owns jasonduncan.com, which is hilarious. I could tell you that story in another show, but that's funny too.
I love it, man. So that wasn't, by the way, that's not the last question that I ask everybody. So this is the last question that I ask everybody on the show. Since the show is called The Growth Now Movement, that question is, in your life, what has been your biggest moment of growth?
In my life, what has been my biggest moment of growth? I think my biggest moment of growth, well, can I get two answers to that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
I think generally speaking, Justin, that your biggest moments of growth are always going to happen in your most horrible moments of failure. 2019 was that year for me. It was the first year I've ever lost money in business. I terminated a business partner. I had a best friend screw me out of a real estate deal that we were doing together with no apologies given, and blamed it on God. Said God told him to do it, which is a whole nother story.
Wow.
And I had a pretty serious family issue going on all in the same year. It was the worst year of my life. I think I had more growth in that year, but I didn't realize that growth until much, much later.
Sure.
So I think your growth is always going to happen in failure. Failure is a better teacher than success. Success really doesn't teach you anything. Failure teaches you everything. Now, the other thing is, my biggest moment of personal growth has been the past year. I have done a deep, deep study into metaphysics. Napoleon Hill, Florence Shen, Wallace Wattles, U.S. Anderson. I mean, I've started Bob Proctor, really diving deep into these teachings that have kind of been suppressed all these years. And I am a completely different human than I was a year ago. You and I don't know each other, except for we just met in the last few months, but I am a completely different human. And I owe it all to doing a deep dive into metaphysical realities.
That's awesome, man. Jason, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your wisdom with my audience and doing what you do, man, because it's necessary, right? There's a lot of stress being an entrepreneur. There's a lot of overwhelm. There's a lot of these things that you teach people to get out of their own way and start living their life versus being beaten to death by their business. So thank you so much, dude, for being you.
It's an honor. Thank you, Justin.